Listen to me carefully. There are moments in life when the world misunderstands you, when your silence is judged, when your patience is mistaken for weakness, when your integrity is questioned because people cannot see what is hidden within you. But hear this truth and let it settle deep in your spirit. God knows your heart. Before a word ever left your mouth, before an action was ever misunderstood, before accusations formed in the minds of others, God already knew your intention, your struggle, your sincerity, and your faith. And if God knows your heart, then you have nothing to prove to people. This is not a small comfort. This is a divine assurance that can steady your soul when everything around you is shaking. There are seasons when trusting God feels harder than praising God. Praise comes easily when prayers are answered quickly, when doors open smoothly, when life affirms your obedience. But trust, true trust, is forged in the quiet, unseen places where no applause exists, where explanations are absent, and where delays stretch longer than your understanding. In those moments, your heart cries out silently, asking, God, do you see me? Do you know what I'm carrying? And the answer resounds through eternity. God knows your heart. He knows the tears you never shared, the prayers you whispered when words felt too heavy, the faith you held on to when logic told you to give up. You must understand this deeply. God does not evaluate you the way people do. People judge by appearance, by outcomes, by rumors, by fragments of information. God judges by the heart. He sees the motive behind your obedience. He sees the restraint you showed when you could have retaliated. He sees the honesty you maintained when compromise would have been easier. He sees the loyalty you carried even when betrayal surrounded you. And because God knows your heart, He also knows how to reward you at the right time, in the right way, for the right purpose. There are many listening right now who have been carrying an invisible burden. You have remained faithful, but misunderstood. You have chosen integrity, but it cost you opportunities. You have trusted God, but the results have not yet appeared. Let me speak to you with clarity and authority. Delay is not denial, and silence is not abandonment. When God is silent, He is not absent. When God delays, He is not ignoring you. He is working in dimensions you cannot see, aligning circumstances, reshaping hearts, and preparing outcomes that match the purity of your intention. God knows when your heart is genuine, even if your hands seem empty. He knows when you are trying, even if the results fall short. He knows when you are learning, even if you stumble. He knows when your obedience costs you more than others realize. That is why trusting God is not blind faith. It is informed faith. It is faith rooted in the certainty that the one who created you understands you better than you understand yourself. Some of you are wrestling internally because you feel unseen. You wonder if your sacrifices matter, if your patience is wasted, if your faith is unnoticed. But let me tell you this with conviction. Nothing done with a sincere heart before God is ever wasted. Every moment of restraint, every choice of righteousness, every prayer offered in honesty is recorded, remembered, and valued. God is not unjust. He does not forget labor born from faith. He does not overlook sincerity. He does not ignore endurance. When you truly grasp that God knows your heart, it changes how you respond to criticism. You stop defending yourself endlessly. You stop explaining your intentions to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop chasing validation from people who cannot discern truth. Instead, you stand firm, grounded in the knowledge that the highest authority already knows the truth. And when God knows your heart, no false narrative can permanently damage your destiny. Trusting God does not mean you will never feel confused. It means you refuse to let confusion override conviction. It means that even when emotions fluctuate, your faith remains anchored. You may not understand why things unfold the way they do, but you trust the character of the one who is guiding your path. Trust is not the absence of questions. It is the decision to keep walking even when answers are incomplete. There are times when God allows your heart to be tested, not to expose you, but to refine you. Pressure reveals what is genuine. Fire purifies what is valuable. Delay strengthens endurance. And through it all, God is observing not just what you do, but why you do it. When your heart remains faithful, even under strain, it qualifies you for greater responsibility, deeper wisdom, and stronger spiritual authority. You must not confuse the opinions of people with the judgment of God. People are limited by perspective. God is limitless in understanding. People respond emotionally, God responds righteously. People forget quickly, God remembers eternally. If God knows your heart, then you are secure, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. Security, rooted in God's knowledge, is unshakable. Some of you are in a season where trusting God feels like standing still while the world rushes past you. Others seem to advance faster, receive sooner, succeed quicker. But hear this, God does not rush what requires maturity. He is more interested in shaping your heart than accelerating your timeline. What He prepares you for is often greater than what you are currently asking for. And if God knows your heart is not yet ready for the weight of what you desire, His delay is actually protection. Trusting God also means trusting His timing. Timing is not punishment, it is precision. God's timing accounts for factors you cannot see. People you haven't met, lessons you haven't learned, strength you haven't yet developed. When the time is right, what is meant for you will arrive with clarity, stability, and purpose. And when it does, you will understand why waiting was necessary. There are moments when your heart feels weary from believing. You have prayed, waited, hoped, and endured. In those moments, remember this: God is closer than your exhaustion. He is nearer than your doubt. He is more aware of your struggle than you are. Trust does not mean you never get tired. It means you refuse to quit even when tiredness knocks at your door. God knows when your heart is sincere, even when your voice trembles. He knows when your faith is real, even when your confidence wavers. He knows when you are holding on by a thread, and He strengthens that thread with His presence. You are not sustained by your strength alone. You are sustained by the faithfulness of God. When you trust God, you relinquish the burden of control. You stop trying to force outcomes. You stop manipulating situations. You stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours to bear. Trust says, God, you see what I cannot. You know what I don't. You understand what I start. I'll go to explain. I place this in your hands. And when something is placed in God's hands, it is never mishandled. There will be moments when God allows misunderstandings to persist, not to harm you, but to teach you detachment. Not everyone needs to understand you for you to fulfill your purpose. Not every relationship is meant to walk with you into the next season. When God knows your heart, He is not threatened by temporary misjudgments. Truth has a way of revealing itself in time. Let me speak this clearly. Your heart matters more to God than your performance. He is not impressed by outward success if the inner foundation is unstable. He values humility over appearance, sincerity over spectacle, faithfulness over fame. And when your heart aligns with God, your life will eventually reflect His order, even if the process feels slow. Trusting God also requires patience with yourself. You are growing, you are learning, you are becoming. Do not condemn yourself for not being where you want to be yet. Growth takes time, refinement takes patience. Transformation is a journey, not a moment. God knows your heart is in process, and He walks with you through every stage. When fear whispers that you are forgotten, answer it with truth. God knows your heart. When doubt suggests that your efforts are useless, respond with faith. God knows your heart. When loneliness convinces you that no one understands, stand firm in this reality. God knows your heart. And when God knows your heart, you are never truly alone. There is a peace that comes when you stop striving for recognition and start resting in God's awareness. It is a peace that steadies your emotions, guards your thoughts, and strengthens your resolve. It does not depend on circumstances. It flows from trust, and that trust becomes your anchor when storms rise. Some of you are closer to breakthrough than you realize. The pressure you feel is not destruction, it is transition. The stretching you experience is not punishment, it is preparation. And the silence you endure is not neglect, it is divine focus. God is doing a deep work, one that begins in the heart before it ever manifests outwardly. There is a sacred depth to trusting God that many never reach because they abandon the journey too early. They want immediate reassurance, instant clarity, visible confirmation, but God often works in ways that require inner maturity before outward manifestation. When God knows your heart, He may allow you to walk through uncertainty, not to confuse you, but to strengthen your spiritual muscles. Trust that has never been tested is shallow, but trust that survives doubt, pressure, and delay becomes unbreakable. Understand this truth deeply. God is not moved by noise, He is moved by sincerity. Loud faith without depth impresses people, but quiet faith rooted in a sincere heart moves heaven. God listens closely to the prayers that rise from humility, not performance. When you trust God from the heart, even without perfect words, even without visible results, that trust carries weight in the unseen realm. God responds not merely to what you ask, but to who you are becoming while you wait. Many are troubled because they feel God is taking too long, but what feels like slowness to you is precision to God. He does not rush outcomes that require inner alignment. He does not release blessings that would crush your character. He does not open doors that would expose weaknesses you are still learning to overcome. When God knows your heart, He knows exactly what you can handle now and what must wait until later. His restraint is not rejection, it is wisdom. There are moments when God allows you to be misunderstood so you can learn to stand without approval. This is a powerful lesson. Approval can become a dependency if you are not careful. But when your confidence is anchored in God's knowledge of your heart, external validation loses its grip. You become steady, you become resilient, you become unshaken by praise and untouched by criticism. This is spiritual maturity, and it only comes through trust. God knows when your obedience costs you relationships, comfort, and familiarity. He sees when you choose what is right, even though it isolates you. Isolation does not mean abandonment. Sometimes God separates you so He can speak clearly to you. Noise distracts, but solitude refines. When God draws you away from the crowd, it is often because He is preparing to entrust you with deeper insight, stronger discernment, and greater responsibility. Trusting God also means trusting His understanding of your pain. God is not distant from your suffering. He is not indifferent to your confusion. He is not unaware of your disappointment. He knows how deeply you feel things. He knows how long you have held on. He knows the moments when your faith felt heavy, and still He sustains you. This alone should strengthen your trust that even in weakness, God does not withdraw. There is a transformation that happens when you stop asking God to explain everything and start asking Him to guide you through it. Explanation satisfies curiosity, but guidance produces growth. God may not reveal every reason, but He will always provide direction if your heart is open. Trust grows when you follow God, even without full understanding. That kind of trust reshapes your inner life and sharpens your spiritual perception. God knows when your heart is wounded but still willing. He knows when disappointment has left marks, but faith remains alive. Do not confuse pain with failure. Pain is often evidence that you care deeply, believe sincerely, and invested fully. God honors that. He heals not by dismissing your pain, but by transforming it into wisdom. What once hurt you becomes what strengthens you. You must remember this. God is not threatened by your questions. Honest questions born from a sincere heart do not offend Him. What weakens trust is not questioning, it is withdrawing. Stay connected, stay open, stay willing. God knows when your heart is reaching toward Him, even when your emotions struggle to keep up. And He meets sincerity with grace. Some are afraid that trusting God means losing control. But what you are really losing is the illusion of control. Control was never yours to begin with. Trusting God frees you from carrying burdens you were never meant to bear. It allows you to release anxiety, tension, and fear into hands that are steady and wise. When God holds your future, you are safer than when you try to manage it alone. God knows when your heart is ready to receive, even if your circumstances suggest otherwise. Readiness is internal before it is external. That is why some receive much and lose it quickly, while others wait and sustain it well. God is preparing you not just to receive blessings, but to steward them with wisdom, humility, and gratitude. Trust the preparation. Trust the process. There will be times when trusting God requires you to remain still when everything inside you wants to act. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is discipline. It is the ability to restrain impulse and wait for divine direction. God speaks most clearly to hearts that are quiet enough to listen. In stillness, discernment sharpens. In patience, clarity emerges. God also knows when your heart is growing tired of hoping. Hope fatigue is real. Waiting stretches the soul. But even when hope feels fragile, God supports it. He does not require perfect endurance. He provides strength to continue. Trust is not about never feeling weary. It is about continuing despite weariness. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are exactly where God can shape you best. Comparison distorts trust. Looking at others will make you question God's timing, but looking to God will restore peace. He does not replicate paths. He designs journeys uniquely. Trusting God means honoring the uniqueness of your path. God knows when your heart is pure, even if your life is messy. Growth is rarely orderly. Transformation is often uncomfortable, but sincerity anchors the process. God works with willing hearts, not perfect ones. If your heart is open, teachable, and faithful, God will continue His work in you. Let this truth settle deeply. God's knowledge of your heart is not passive, it is active. He responds to it. He guides according to it. He protects based on it. He rewards in alignment with it. When God knows your heart, He orchestrates outcomes that honor both your growth and His purpose. Continue trusting God when the path narrows. Continue trusting God when resources seem limited. Continue trusting God when emotions fluctuate. Because the same God who knows your heart also knows how to bring you through every season with wisdom intact and faith strengthened. Your trust is not misplaced. It is anchored in the one whose understanding is complete, whose timing is flawless, and whose guidance never fails. Stay rooted, stay faithful, stay trusting. God knows your heart, and that knowledge is shaping a future greater than what you can currently see. There comes a moment in every faithful journey when God strips away the comforts that once supported you, not to leave you exposed, but to reveal what truly sustains you. When external assurances fade, when familiar signs disappear, when predictable patterns dissolve, God is inviting your heart into deeper trust. This is where faith matures, from dependence on outcomes to dependence on God Himself. When God knows your heart, He came. When you are ready for that depth, even if your emotions resist the transition, trusting God also means accepting that His ways do not always align with human logic. God operates beyond surface level cause and effect. He weaves purpose through complexity, wisdom through delay, and strength through adversity. What seems contradictory to you may be essential to the larger design unfolding beyond your awareness. God is not bound by your perspective, yet He is intimately aware of your experience. That balance alone should anchor your trust. There are seasons when God allows your strength to run low, so you can learn reliance rather than self-sufficiency. Self-reliance feels empowering, but it quietly limits spiritual growth. Trust deepens when you acknowledge your limits and lean fully on God's sufficiency. God does not ask you to carry what He has already promised to handle. When you surrender control, you gain peace. When you release certainty, you receive direction. God knows when your heart is tempted to doubt His goodness because of prolonged struggle. But struggle does not redefine God's nature. Difficulty does not diminish His faithfulness. Your circumstances may change, but God's character remains constant. Trust is built by remembering who God has always been, not by measuring Him against temporary hardship. When your heart holds on to that truth, stability replaces fear. There is power in unseen obedience. Obedience without witnesses, faith without applause, integrity without recognition. This is the substance God honors. Many want visible favor, but God first seeks invisible faithfulness. He watches how you behave when no one is affirming you, how you speak when no one is correcting you, how you remain faithful when no reward is guaranteed. God knows your heart in those moments, and they carry eternal weight. Trusting God requires courage. The courage to believe when evidence is lacking. The courage to continue when progress feels minimal. The courage to obey when outcomes are uncertain. This courage does not come from confidence in yourself. It comes from confidence in God's wisdom. Courage grows when you remember that God sees the end from the beginning, while you only see the next step. God also uses waiting to purify desire. What you want matters, but how you want it matters even more. Waiting exposes whether desire is rooted in ego or purpose, impatience or readiness. When your heart remains aligned during waiting, God reshapes desire into something stronger, wiser, and more sustainable. What eventually arrives will not control you. It will serve the purpose God intended. Some misunderstand trust as passivity, but true trust is active alignment. You continue to do what is right even when outcomes are delayed. You continue to speak truth even when silence would be easier. You continue to hope even when disappointment lingers. Trust does not withdraw from responsibility. It fulfills it with peace rather than pressure. God knows when your heart feels stretched beyond comfort. Expansion always feels uncomfortable. Growth always demands space. God enlarges your capacity so you can contain what He plans to entrust to you. Without expansion, blessings overwhelm. Without growth, responsibility becomes burdensome. Trust the stretching. It is evidence of preparation. There are moments when God allows things to fall apart so they can be rebuilt correctly. What collapses was often held together by effort rather than alignment. God rebuilds with stability, truth, and purpose. When your heart trusts Him through dismantling, restoration comes stronger than before. God also guards you from what your heart is not yet prepared to manage. Protection often looks like restriction. Closed doors are not always rejection, they are divi, nay, boundaries. God sees what you cannot see, and He intervenes not to frustrate you, but to preserve you. Trust grows when you recognize that God's refusals are sometimes expressions of care. When fear tries to dominate your thoughts, remember that fear thrives on uncertainty, but trust thrives on truth. Truth reminds you that God is aware, present, and intentional. Fear isolates, but trust connects. Fear rushes, but trust waits. Fear reacts, but trust responds. Choose trust, not because fear disappears, but because truth outweighs it. God knows when your heart longs for reassurance, and while He may not always give you signs, He gives you strength. Signs confirm, but strength sustains. You do not need constant reassurance if your heart is anchored. Anchors do not move with the waves. They hold steady beneath them. Your faith is being refined, not reduced. What feels like pressure is shaping endurance. What feels like silence is sharpening discernment. What feels like distance is actually deepening intimacy. God is not withdrawing, He is drawing you inward. Trusting God also means accepting that some answers will only come later. Understanding often follows obedience, not the other way around. Walk first. Clarity will follow. God reveals what you need when you need it, not when curiosity demands it. Let your heart remain teachable. Pride resists trust, but humility embraces it. When you admit that you do not know everything, you create space for God's wisdom to lead you. God directs the humble because they listen. Trust flourishes where humility lives. God knows when your heart is aligned, even when your path feels uncertain. Alignment matters more than certainty. You may not know where everything is heading, but if your heart is aligned with truth, integrity, and faith, you are moving in the right direction. Hold firmly to this: nothing entrusted to God is ever low. Say, time is not wasted. Effort is not forgotten. Faith is not ignored. God redeems what is placed in His care. When you trust Him fully, you are not giving something up. You are placing it where it can grow. Remain faithful in thought, in action, in intention. Let your trust be quiet but firm, patient but strong. God knows your heart, and He is working in ways that will one day make perfect sense, not just to your understanding, but to your spirit. There is a sacred confidence that rises within you when you finally accept that God's awareness of your heart is deeper than your awareness of yourself. You may struggle to articulate what you feel, but God understands without explanation. You may wrestle with conflicting emotions, but God discerns the sincerity beneath them. This is why trust does not require perfection. It requires honesty. When your heart is open before God, even weakness becomes a place of divine engagement rather than shame. God's wisdom operates beyond urgency. Urgency pressures, wisdom positions. Many lose peace because they confuse God's patience with inactivity. But patience is not delay without purpose. It is action unfolding at the correct pace. God does not move according to anxiety, He moves according to order. When your heart aligns with that truth, impatience loses its power over you. There are times when God allows you to feel the weight of responsibility so you can learn discernment. Discernment teaches you what to carry and what to release. Not every burden is yours. Not every outcome is your assignment. Trust grows when you stop interfering with what God has already claimed as His domain. When you release what you cannot control, clarity begins to replace confusion. God knows when your heart is torn between faith and fear. He does not reject you for that tension. He guides you through it. Fear signals vulnerability, not failure. Faith, though, not eliminate fear. It chooses obedience despite it. When your heart continues forward, even while trembling, that movement is powerful in the eyes of God. There is also a refinement that happens when God teaches you to trust without conditions. Conditional trust believes only when results are visible. Unconditional trust believes because God is faithful. This level of trust transforms your inner posture. You stop negotiating your obedience. You stop measuring God's goodness by outcomes. You begin to rest in who God is, not just what He does. God knows when your heart has been bruised by disappointment. Disappointment can harden the heart if it is not surrendered. But when offered to God, disappointment becomes wisdom. It teaches discernment. It teaches patience. It teaches depth. God does not waste pain. He redeems it. Trust allows that redemption to take place. Some seasons are designed to teach you endurance rather than speed. Endurance strengthens what speed cannot. Speed gives momentum, but endurance builds resilience. God knows when your heart needs resilience more than relief. And though relief will come, resilience ensures that when it does, you remain steady and grounded. Trusting God also reshapes how you interpret opposition. Opposition is not always resistance. It is sometimes confirmation that growth is occurring. When resistance increases, it often means your capacity is expanding. God allows resistance not to stop you, but to strengthen your discernment and sharpen your focus. Trust anchors you, so opposition does not derail your purpose. God understands the complexity of your intentions. Humans simplify motives. God examines them fully. This is why you must not internalize unfair judgments. When God knows your heart, you are free from the need to be fully understood by others. Freedom from that need releases emotional energy and restores peace. The is also a sacred exchange that happens when you trust God with unanswered questions. Questions placed in God's care do not vanish, they mature. In time, understanding rises with depth and clarity. But even when understanding does not arrive, peace can. Peace is not dependent on explanation. It is dependent on trust. God knows when your heart longs for resolution. He also knows when resolution must wait until growth is complete. Resolution without growth leads to repetition. Growth without immediate resolution leads to wisdom. God values wisdom because wisdom sustains what resolution alone cannot. Your trust is not measured by how loudly you declare it, but by how consistently you live it. Consistency reveals alignment. When your actions match your faith, even under pressure, your trust becomes embodied. God honors embodied faith. Faith that is lived, not just spoken. There are moments when God allows you to reach the edge of your understanding, so you learn to lean into revelation. Understanding relies on logic, revelation relies on surrender. God reveals what logic cannot reach. Trust opens the door to revelation because it quiets the need to control. God knows when your heart has grown cautious because of past disappointments. Caution is understandable, but it must not become a prison. Trust invites you to remain open without being naive, hopeful without being reckless. God guides that balance when you allow Him to lead your inner life. Remember this deeply: God is never rushed, never confused, never uncertain. When you trust God, you align your limited vision with His limitless perspective. That alignment produces peace even before circumstances change. Your heart is being trained to recognize God's voice above all others. Noise diminishes clarity, but trust amplifies it. As you continue to trust, discernment sharpens, decisions become clearer, direction becomes steadier. God speaks to hearts that are willing to listen more than they speak. God knows when your heart needs rest more than resolution. Exhaustion distorts perception. Rest restores clarity. Trust allows you to rest even when answers are incomplete. That rest is not inactivity, it is renewal. What God is building in you is lasting. What lasts must be formed slowly, carefully, intentionally. Quick construction collapses. Deliberate formation endures. Trust sustains you through the slow work because it reminds you that permanence is worth patience. Let this truth settle into the deepest place within you. You are not navigating life unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. God knows your heart in its fullness, your intentions, your struggles, your faith, your perseverance. He knows the sincerity behind your prayers and the courage it takes for you to keep going when answers seem distant. And because God knows your heart, He also knows exactly how to guide your steps, how to strengthen your spirit, and how to lead you into what is meant for you at the appointed time. Do not allow doubt to rewrite what faith has already established. Do not let temporary silence convince you of permanent absence. God is present in the waiting, active in the stillness, and purposeful in every delay. What feels hidden is being prepared. What feels slow is being aligned. What feels uncertain is being shaped into clarity. Trust does not weaken you, it steadies you. It does not diminish your resolve, it refines it. Stand firm in the assurance that nothing entrusted to God is ever wasted. Every moment of patience, every act of obedience, every quiet prayer has meaning. God does not forget. He does not overlook. He does not abandon what He has begun. Your trust is not misplaced. It is anchored in perfect wisdom and unwavering faithfulness. Release the need to explain yourself to those who cannot see your heart. The one who matters most already knows it. Walk forward with peace, not pressure. Move with confidence, not fear. Let your faith be calm, deep, and unshakable. God knows your heart, and that knowledge is enough to carry you through every season, every test, every waiting moment, and every breakthrough yet to come.